Hey, greetings everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. The guest we have today is what she calls living in the box and coming out of it. We're going to hear more about that from her today. But Christy has been living in the box, came out of it, started a business, sometimespouse.com, along with her husband. We'll hear all about the business. And after that, they have just taken off and they've made it their mission to help about 1.2 million families
Yes, sir.
spend more time with their families and treat their families as a priority first. That's what they're looking to do. So welcome, Christy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So why don't you, in your own words, tell us who you are, what you do, and how you came about to be in the business that you're in?
Well, I was settling in one day at work and I got this phone call from my little brother in Missouri, and I'm in Texas. And he said that grandma had fallen ill and they didn't think she was going to make it through the night. And he said, "You've got to come up here and say goodbye." So I immediately walked into my boss's office that was next to mine. And I said, "I need to go. My grandma, who helped raise me, I was raised on a farm. She always made me work because I was ornery. And I've got to go. They don't think she's going to make it through the night. I got to go say goodbye to my grandmother." And she said, "Well, I'm sorry. You're the only one here that can do your job. So you have to stay." And I said, "No, you don't understand. This was like my second mother. I've got to go and say goodbye." She said, "Absolutely not. If you leave, you don't have a job." And so I decided that day it was either the job or going to say bye to grandma. I had 3 kids and a mortgage to pay. So my decision was to stay at my job. Unfortunately, grandma was really sick. So I had to see her. My brother was a millennial, so luckily he was able to hook up Skype like we're on today. And I got to say goodbye to my grandmother via Skype. And her last words to me after we exchanged our normal pleasantries, she called me heifer and I called her old lady. After we had a couple of laughs, she said, "Christy, I want you to know you have an amazing family. You've got a husband that is so in love with you and 3 beautiful children." They were 5, 6, and 7 at the time. She said, "Always put your family first." Man, that was like a kick in the gut because I had not done it that day. I'd put my job first, that just overbroke job first. So later on that evening, she passed away. And thank goodness they had her funeral on a weekend so I could go and say goodbye to Gran at her funeral, even though she was already gone. And so I stayed with her through family visitation, through the funeral, and through the graveside. And when I was standing there at the graveside, it felt like it was just her and me. They were getting ready to lower her box into the ground. It was like something hit me and it said, "Don't live a box life." What does that mean? Live a box life. So I looked at him lowering grandma into the ground and I thought about her life. She was 94 years old. She had 21 brothers and sisters, 7 children of her own, 21 or 22 grandchildren at the time, 9 great grandchildren, but she'd never had a driver's license. She'd never worked outside of the home, really. She was a farmer's wife. So, yeah, she was full time with that and taking care of the babies.
Mhm.
But she really only lived within about 3 miles of her house. And so she never did anything. So even though she had this amazing family life, it wasn't really well rounded. So I went home and I went back to work and I was looking at my life and I thought, I don't live a box life. I moved to Texas. My family's moved to Texas, but I woke up in the morning and I'd eat a box cereal, and I'd feed the kids box cereal and I'd send them on their box to school and I'd drive in my box car to work where I'd work on my box all day long. And then I'd go get a box lunch and come back and work on the box a little bit longer. And I'd drive the box car home where I'd make a box dinner, usually macaroni and cheese and hot dogs because that's all we could afford. We were living paycheck to paycheck. And then we'd sit in front of that box every single night for 3 or 4 hours. And that was our life. Wake up, repeat, box life. Wake up, repeat, box life. Go to sleep, wake up, repeat, box life. And
Mhm.
so I realized I was living that kind of box life. And one night while watching The Box, Lester Holt came on the TV and he started telling about this woman in the South who had started an organization business, and she had left her full-time job and replaced her income within a year. I thought, well, if this woman in the South can do that, we can definitely do it. But I want to do a handyman and household business. So when my husband got home that night, I waited for him to eat that box dinner. And then I said, you've got to watch this news story. So I had him watch it and I said, what do you think? And he goes, a woman with an organization business in Louisiana. What do you want me to do with that? I said, no, what if we did it and we started a handyman and household service? So I rewound it and we watched it again and we talked about it. And so he was handy at the time, so he could do it part-time in the evenings and weekends, and I could do it part-time cleaning, but I thought the cleaning business would take off much more quickly than the handyman business. So I roped my best friend into it the next day, and then that's how Sometimes Spouse was born, was just living that box life and wanting to get out of that box.
So how long ago has this been? Like how long has it been since you were on the job, and when did you form Sometime Spouse?
6 years ago, we started Sometimes Spouse, and it's been 5 years and 1 week since I left that job.
All
We're
right.
good. Yeah.
So how's the business doing?
It's doing amazingly well. So in Waco, Texas, we started out, it was Max, Crystal, and I doing the work. But within a few months, we hired our friends and family to help us with the business. And then while we were sitting at work, working on the box, we were like, we're making more money with other people going out and work and us sitting at work. So we had this plan to hire 5 people, and we hired 5 people. And Max left his job first because the handyman was much busier than the cleaning department. And then a few months later, I left my job. A few months later, Crystal left her job. And we were able to replace our full-time incomes within that first full year. The second full year, we tripled our incomes. And in the third year, we started franchising. So it's been a pretty rapid growth. We've got locations all across the United States now, about
Awesome.
46 people working actively in the business. But it started with just this idea from a live in the box life.
So what have you learned since the time you've started the business? How do you market it? How do you grow it?
I didn't know anything when I started it. We started with a newspaper ad, a $40 ad in the newspaper, and I remember us divvying up the change to pay for the tax on that. And we didn't know anything. We just knew we had to have a catchy name in the very beginning, and we've always answered the phones the same. Sometimes Spouse, would you like to rent a husband or a wife today? To get people to kind of chuckle with us. And that's how we started marketing the business. But I learned pretty quickly that we have 3 different things we are as an entrepreneur, or as a business owner. There's 3 core values. One's a skilled producer, one's a manager leader, and one is an entrepreneur. And I'm the manager leader, so I knew pretty quickly that I had to get good at what I was doing, which was the marketing and sales and building relationships. My husband's the entrepreneur, and Crystal is the skilled producer. So all 3 together, we had kind of a magical combination. But I've had to become an expert in my field, especially with franchising and teaching other people to do what we've done. And Crystal and Max have also had to become experts in their fields and learn things. So we always are listening to books and podcasts and learning everything we can about the craft, because even though we have franchisees now, I want to be better and better and better. I want to be an expert in the fields that I train on.
And when did you guys decide to go down the franchisee path?
It was about 3 years ago. In November, we started meeting. We met somebody by chance. They asked us to do an estimate at their home because they put their foot through the ceiling. And my husband, when he was out there, said, my wife wants to meet you. She wants to learn how to franchise. And before my husband even got back to the office, Patrick had called. And he said, let's have lunch together. So we had a lunch that was supposed to be an hour long. It was 3 hours long because I took my handy dandy little notebook and took lots of little notes, and asked him all these questions. And I said, you know what? I just don't think we're ready yet. And he said, I think you're ready. You just have to do it. And so I don't know. It was scary. I didn't want to go out of my comfort zone. I didn't want to get out of that box, right? Because it's so nice and comfy in there with the blanket. Uh, we met with him about a week later with one of his business partners, and his business partner goes, maybe you aren't ready. And I said, who are you to say we're not ready? That's what I had to hear, what I was saying to myself. And once he said it, I was like, no, we're ready. We're going to make this happen. So within 6 weeks, we got our franchise disclosure document ready and put in systems to implement in Sometimes Spouse. And we started franchising 3 years ago in November.
And how many units do you have? How many franchises do you have around the country?
We have 46 people working actively in the business. Okay. We've helped hundreds of people get started in the business, but some of them don't make it, unfortunately. And then some of them aren't open yet.
During the last 6 years that you've been running this business, I'm sure you've had some high times and low times. What would you consider the lowest point while you were actually running a business?
Man, have you ever heard that song, A Million Different Little Reasons?
Uh-huh.
I say about every day something happens in business that you could choose to go back to the way you were living before, living, paycheck to paycheck, working that job. So there's been a million different little reasons, but the lowest point was probably the hardest point. I don't think it was the lowest, but the hardest point was probably when I lost my first franchise, because I didn't understand how they couldn't just duplicate what we were doing. I didn't realize at that point it was about the action they needed to take to be successful. Because if they're not successful, they always blame us. Even though I've got so many others that are lined up here making tons of money, they still can't figure out that it's the action that they neglected to take, or they took that system and then they tried to reinvent it when they didn't have to reinvent. Mm-hmm. So that probably one of the hardest points was when we lost our first franchise. That was the biggest blow, I think, in the beginning.
Do you currently run your own unit, or are you pretty much overseeing the entire company at this point?
We oversee the entire company, but I do own multiple units throughout the state of Texas and beyond. Okay. So some of them are company-owned franchises.
Okay. And then what do you think has been the high point? Do you think you have had a high point, or you're looking forward to something more?
You've always got to have something to work towards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had multiple high points. I never would have thought that I could have a business that did 7 figures in 1 year. I never would have thought that I could have convinced somebody else to get started in this business. So, selling that first franchise was definitely a high. And being able to meet the people I've met and help the people I've met, because our mission here at Sometimes Spouse is to help people put their family first, from our customers that can't take care of those honeydews to our franchisees that want that freedom and flexibility and great pay in their life. So to be able to talk to those people and help coach them through it and see them make those, leaps of faith. I was just talking to a franchisee earlier that he's like, Christy, I can't believe that this is happening. And I'm like, it's exactly what we've been coaching you for. You've been working so hard. His wife got to leave her full-time job and now work with him hand in hand, building Sometimes Spouse. And it's pretty amazing to be able to see somebody that used to be a nursing home administrator, that he was on call 24/7. And now he gets to see his wife every day and work with her, which is what he really wanted to do, and be there for his son, who's now 7 years old. It's been amazing to see that people be able to put their family first. It's just the biggest paycheck of the heart, or people to come up to you and go, you are such an inspiration. Like, just a woman that started a handyman and household company. What do you mean? And they're like, no, like, you left that way of life and you show other people that they can do it too. So it's been an amazing journey. And every day there's something like that. But of course, I do look forward to going national in 2020 and also international in 2025.
Oh, very nice. Awesome. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. So what's with the 1.2 million change number in terms of helping those many people get closer or prioritize their families first?
Well, I'm a firm believer in any number that ends in zero is a big old fat lie. So that's where I came up with 1,204,732 people that we wanted to help put family first. The average family spends about 36 minutes a day together, and we want to help you get that time back with your family. And most of the time, they're on a screen of some sort. So we want them to put that stinking phone down, turn off the computer, turn off the TV, and interact with your family. So we came up with that number by the three partners sitting down and talking about the important numbers in our lives. And we came up with 1,204,732 families because we want to put our ding on this universe. Because as a social worker that I used to be, they beat that out of you in about 3 weeks that you could change the world. I'm a firm believer that you can change the world, but you have to know where you're going towards to change it. So that's where the number came from. And I know I won't hit it overnight. It'll take me about 20 years is what I'm thinking. So, but man, to help that many people, that's a lot of families. That's a lot of humans on this planet that are going to sit there and think about putting their family first.
Are you guys actually tracking that number as to how many people you're helping?
Yes, sir. It's about 10,349 as of this morning.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So, Christy, I'm going to ask you a few questions.
All
Just
right.
and whatever comes into your head, let me know what your answers are. What are you most thankful for?
I am most grateful for the amazing family that I have. And that family doesn't necessarily have to be blood. It's my kids, my husband, my best friend, my niece, and the people that are brought into my life that they start as friends and then they become family.
Awesome, awesome. And what are you most scared of at this point?
Man, I couldn't truly be an entrepreneur if I didn't say failure. That's a big one. But, the thing I'm trying to recondition my mind on, and it's the hardest thing to recondition your mind is, failure makes you who you are. You can't get to the top of the mountain without falling down a few times, right? So I'm a firm believer that those are character building days when I have those minor failures. I had a failure this morning. And it hurts a little bit, but without pain, you can't grow. Think about when you're having a baby, you
Hmm.
can't have that baby without pain, right?
That's right.
So that's those little failures that get you all the time, but you've got to keep your mind going towards that end goal.
The first year you did mention that you had highs and lows, and there were times when you thought of, hey, maybe I should have stuck to my paycheck. But let's say, discounting that first year over the last 5 years, have you ever had that thought at all?
I'm not going to lie, the thought has popped into my mind, but then when I start going and looking at a job, right, they don't pay me nearly as much as I get paid at sometimes spouse. They don't give me that freedom and flexibility. I can't just take off. I like have to report to someone. I was signing up the other day to help out in an organization. And this is, my ego gets in the way all the time. Even though I think I get it reared in, it still comes
Mhm.
out, right? And I was signing up for an organization and I went to the first meeting and it was I think some booster club for my daughter's basketball, but I knew I had to do it. She's only got 2 years left. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the teacher, and she's amazing, and I love her. She's an amazing coach. But this parent next to me goes, "Here, pass this on." Who is she to tell me what to do? I was like, wait, wait. I'm in a different element, Christy. You got to think about this. So when I start thinking about somebody else telling me what to do, even though I do have partners that I have to talk through, we know how to talk to each other, right? When you go into a different kind of organization, they're your boss. You have to live for them. You have to go by their criteria. If I want to take off at noon and get on my stand-up paddleboard, I don't have to tell anybody, and I can be gone for 2 hours, right? I couldn't do that with a job. They'd tell me what to do every time, and it wouldn't work. I think I'm like unemployable at this point.
So, the very first year when you started the business, when you left your job and you were trying to stand up the business, what kind of a roller coaster of emotions did you go through? Having been someone who came out of a job, I'm sure there would have been moments of guilt, moments of doubt. What went through your mind?
Man, I left that safety and security of the paycheck, and it was scary. I cried all the way home, believe it or not. I left my job. I was so excited, but I was going to miss my friends, and I was going to miss that paycheck. I was going to miss the insurance, the 401k with the 12% matching. I was going to miss all of that to go into the world of the unknown. So it was so scary. And I remember a few times during that first year, when jobs weren't really secure at that point. I mean, we started, and for 4 years straight, we always had jobs going for our guys and girls before we sold it and we acquired it back. But during that first year, learning to work with my husband, that was very tough. And I questioned, what we've done, because most people just spend a couple hours together a week. So we had to learn how his like yin and yang together, but also
Right.
I had to do that with my best friend. So it was a learning curve. My best friend had a different work ethic than the work ethic that my husband and I had. So I had to learn how to work with that and how to mold us all into the kind of the same work ethic so we could work together throughout the years. And I'm not going to say there hasn't been hiccups over the last 5 years, because we've had disagreements. We've had partner meetings where I didn't know that anybody was going to make it out alive, but we made it through. And the spoils that we have now, and the spoils we're going to have 5 years from now, are going to be just amazing. I mean, one day I'll be able to afford my own island. People talk about that, but you're not going to have your own island working for somebody. I'm building something with a residual income built into it and two revenue streams that actually funnel to multiple different businesses. I will be able to buy an island one day, whereas most people will just dream of it.
Right, right. So, what kind of preparation went into your transition from a job to a business? With you and your spouse, both of you getting into it, how were you prepared? Did you put some money aside, or what did you do, especially with running a family and having a mortgage to pay?
So the first year we did it part time on our evenings and weekends, and we built the business one brick at a time. But before we left our full time jobs, we had to have so much in savings. We had to have insurance for us and the family. We had to have workman's comp insurance before I would leave my full time job. And we also had to have another form of insurance just so I could know that we had a safety net of some sort.
Right.
So that was all put into place before we left our full-time jobs. But transitioning from a job where you have to be there from 8 to 5 to a business that I could be there, I could not be there, that's a major transition. So when I worked my full-time job, I had off every single Friday, and I thought when I transitioned to my business, I could do that. It took me years to be able to do that, and I usually only take off 1 or 2 Fridays a month now for my own sanity. I call those thinking days.
Hmm.
But that was a hard part too. Like, you can't just up and leave. You have to be there until the problem is solved, until the issue's solved, until you have jobs for the guys the next day, because it puts on a different layer, because now my responsibility is to employ people. So I
Right.
want to make sure that they have jobs so that they can feed their families also. So, and now it's an entire brand that we feed. So it's a lot different than that mentality. I come in, I do just enough not to get fired. I give it, 35%. Now I have to give it 110% every single day, whether I feel like it or not.
Yeah, now you're actually responsible for so many more families than
Hmm.
just yourself. Awesome. So, continuing my questions, what are you most happy about?
Man, the thing I'm most proud of is my family. I have three amazing children, and I know every single one of them. I have a different relationship with all three of my kids. I have this amazing love story with my husband and this life that we've built together. So, if I was asked that one thing, what is it that's most important to you? What makes you the happiest, brings you the most joy? It is definitely my family and my fur babies.
Awesome. And what do you look forward to? What are the plans for the future?
So right now we're still franchising in the state of Texas. We're looking for managing partners all throughout Texas also. And then in 2020, about June of 2020, we're going to go nationwide. And then in 2025, we want worldwide domination with sometime spouse.
All right. And what would you like your legacy to be?
My legacy is to teach other people to put their family first. Money can come and go, things can come and go, but the most important thing that you could ever have in your life is your family. You've only got 940 Saturdays between the time your child's born and the time they go off to college. Spend time with them, make time, get interested in what your kids do. My kids hang out with me on the weekends. Of course, they go and do their things in the evenings with their friends, but we go out on the lake. We go hiking together. We go camping. We even go shopping. I know too much about dinosaurs because of my son. So be interested in what they're interested in. Don't make it all about you. Make it about them because you've only got a short period of time with them.
Very nice. Awesome, Christy. This is great. I really hope something spouse does well. You guys branch out, go national, international, and kick it out of the park. And I do hope that you meet your number, 1.2 million change, whatever number you have, you're able to change those many number of lives. Before I let you go, is there one takeaway for our listeners that you'd like to share?